In February 2020, 12 players were shuffled in a massive 4-team trade. As Timberwolves fans, this was the end of our time with Robert Covington, who in just 2 half seasons hustled his way into the hearts of Timberwolves fans. Covington was the perfect fit for the Wolves, a dependable 3-point shooter and a lockdown wing defender, a high-energy team player who was beloved by Karl Anthony Towns. All that being said, it did make sense for the Wolves to send Rocco out on a trade. Due to a mixture of inconsistency and injuries, the Timberwolves were well out of the playoff picture, and Covington was one of the most desirable trade targets in the league. So the Wolves cashed in. What did we get in return? A 2020 Nets first-round pick, which currently represents the 17th pick in the upcoming draft. Jared Vanderbilt, a G League player, Evan Turner for money purposes, but most importantly, the young duo out of Denver, Juan Hernan-Gomez and Malik Beasley. Juan is an interesting topic of his own, as he played incredibly well with the Timberwolves during his 14-game stretch with the team after the trade, and he potentially factors in as a starter for the club depending how the draft and free agency shakes out. But today, we're here to talk about Malik Beasley. I've discussed in my previous videos about Josh Okogie and Jarrett Culver how the Timberwolves have an interesting collection of young wings. And if you're a Wolves fan, I recommend you go check those videos out, as those players will help determine how we shape the future of our team. But the last piece of the puzzle of those interesting wings for right now is Malik Beasley. Beasley had some incredible performances in his 14-game run with the Wolves to end this last season, and it has many Timberwolves fans enthralled about the potential of his long-term future with us. So let's dive into the player profile of Malik Beasley and what his potential future with the Timberwolves looks like. Okay, let's get this off our chest right away. Malik Beasley's strengths are not as a defender. His single-season numbers on steals are almost entirely negligible, and even when you look to per-36 numbers to make up for his time as a bench player with Denver, Beasley still only gets up to 1.1 steals per game, and it's not consistent. All the way back to his draft profile, Beasley is noted as a defender with good effort but bad defensive tendencies. I would say both of those have flattened out a bit, as his defensive effort certainly isn't tremendous, but his defensive tendencies aren't egregious and they don't really stand out. Beasley's lack of standout defense may be the single most glaring issue with the idea of keeping him around long term. The star duo of Karl Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, both being tremendous offensive talents with defensive struggles, can the Timberwolves afford to pack the starting 5 with another lackluster defender? A starting lineup with Beasley would practically require elite defenders at the last 2 starting spots just to keep the defense afloat. If the Wolves go forward with that option, they are either signaling that they believe Beasley is a more capable defender than we have seen, or we are truly planning on going all in on outscoring other teams rather than outplaying them. Alright, now this is the part we are all here for. Malik Beasley gets buckets. A career 38% 3-point shooter, Beasley put up the 3 ball at a 42% clip in his 14 games with the Wolves. And while it was just 14 games, he was shooting over 8 threes per game, so even in a small sample size, it was high volume. Beasley posted over 20 points a game in this run with the Wolves, which has Minnesota fans running wild. And Beasley did it all. Off the dribble threes, catch and shoot threes, mid-range dribble drives. The only piece missing to Beasley's scoring repertoire is his ability to draw fouls, as he only averaged 2 free throw attempts per game. How does this lethal scoring skill set pair with Towns and Russell? Well, I'd say just about perfectly. He spaces out the floor with knockdown shooting, and his catch and shoot abilities make him the perfect release valve for Towns in the paint, or the perfect recipient for Russell's slash and kicks. His ability to put the ball on the deck means he can take some pressure off of Russell. Beasley is a score-first player, however, and is by no means a secondary playmaker, which isn't necessarily ideal with Russell, but D'Angelo is a high-volume playmaker and will only need playmaking relief on occasion, and honestly, Karl-Anthony Towns may fit the bill himself. Regardless of position, the big guy is effective off the dribble and has a talent for finding open teammates both up top and in the key. With Towns and Russell alone, the Wolves' offense looks to be a strong one, but factor in the potential of Beasley rattling off 20 or more points on any given night, it adds a whole other element of scoring potential that makes this Wolves offense seemingly unstoppable on paper. There are a ton of factors that will determine what the future looks like for Malik Beasley. He is a restricted free agent this offseason as he comes off of his rookie deal. Unless a team were to dramatically overpay for Beasley, it's hard to imagine the Wolves letting him walk for free. I would imagine that the Wolves would at least match whatever offer he netted, then look to trade him afterwards if they didn't like the deal. The Timberwolves also hold the #1 pick in the upcoming draft and could potentially take backcourt players like LaMelo Ball or Anthony Edwards with that pick, and frankly, Beasley doesn't factor well into a starting lineup with either of them, especially LaMelo Ball. If the Wolves traded down and took a front court option like Obi Toppin, or even stayed at 1 and took James Wiseman, Malik does factor better into that lineup, even though it's still not ideal. If the Wolves traded out of the first pick in pursuit of a star, Beasley would likely be shipped off with that pick. Booker, Simmons, CP3, Beal, or any of the other long list of potential star trades being discussed would not be moved for the first pick alone, and Beasley would likely be shipped off as well as an enticing young player. Beasley's window lines up perfectly with Towns and Russell, as he is just a year younger than both of them, and his potential to continue to grow alongside them and enter a prime window with them makes him a textbook third option player if he lives up to the potential we saw this last season. With the #1 pick, Beasley's free agency, and the potential of a star trade all hanging in the balance, it is very difficult to predict or assess the future of Malik Beasley in Minnesota. But it is easy to project him having a bright NBA future. Beasley is incredibly fun to watch, and should Beasley go to another team, that fan base is in for a lot of fun. That being said, no Wolves fans would be disappointed to see him stick around. For other insight on the future of the Timberwolves, you should check out my videos on Okogie and Culver, and for the insight on the history of the Timberwolves, you should check out my Who They Are video on the Wolves. Stay lit, and thanks for watching.